My name is Elijah Brooks. I'm 38 years old. I wasn't born into wealth. I didn't have connections or legacy, but I had ideas, drive, and an unshakable belief that the life I wanted could be built from scratch. When I met Ava, my wife now, I was still in my grind phase, fixing computers in basements, doing freelance software jobs for clients who barely paid on time. But she saw something in me long before anyone else did. Unfortunately, her family didn't. The first time I met them, I was wearing my only blazer, 3 years old, and a size too tight. Her father looked at me like I was a guest who'd overstayed his welcome. Her mother smiled, thin and forced, and her brother didn't even shake my hand. They didn't ask about my work. They didn't ask about my dreams. They asked where I parked, as if to say, "You don't belong here." And I felt it. Every second of that dinner I was a man being measured and already declared insufficient. After Ava and I got engaged, things got worse. Her family held a quiet intervention, sat her down, and asked if she was sure she wanted to marry down. Her father said it was financial suicide. Her mother cried, not from joy but from embarrassment. And yet Ava chose me, not out of rebellion, but out of love. I had nothing to offer but vision and loyalty. She said it was enough, but I knew what I was walking into, a family that had already closed the door on me before I ever knocked. The wedding was beautiful but telling. Her family didn't contribute $1. They sat stiffly in the corner, whispering judgments in place of toasts. Her brother told me flat out, if you really loved her, you'd let her marry up. I smiled and nodded. I wasn't going to argue. I knew where I was going, even if they didn't. I wasn't poor because I lacked value. I was broke because I was building something too big to fit inside their world. After the honeymoon, Ava and I moved into a one-bedroom apartment. She worked part-time at a bookstore while I coded day and night, sleeping beside a whiteboard covered in algorithms and mock-up screens. I had an idea for a platform that could change the way small businesses manage their inventory, something lean, intuitive, built for the people who kept getting ignored by big tech. I called it SeedCore. No funding, no team, just hunger. I never once brought up her family, but every time they ignored my messages, every time they made a snide comment behind Ava's back, I stored it, not as fuel for revenge, but as reminders of who I wasn't building this for. I didn't want to impress them. I wanted to prove to myself that I could create value from absolutely nothing. I wanted to succeed in silence and let my life do the speaking. Comment, they'll see if you've ever been underestimated because of your bank account. There's a heaviness that comes from being seen as less than, not because of who you are, but because of what you don't yet have. That's what her family did to me. They didn't care about my character, my discipline, or the vision I was pouring my soul into. To them, I was just broke, and in their world, being broke wasn't temporary. It was a personality flaw, something shameful. Ava saw how it affected me, even when I tried to pretend it didn't. I never said it out loud, but every backhanded remark carved a little deeper than I expected. There was one night, just months into our marriage, when I came home from a pitch meeting that went nowhere. I had used our rent money to travel to that meeting. The investor said no, said the idea was too small to scale. I didn't even tell Ava right away. I just collapsed on the floor. Laptop still in my bag, shoes still on. She sat beside me, wordless. No judgment, no fear, just presence. That kind of love is rare. It's the kind that roots you deeper when the world is trying to uproot you. A week later, Ava's mother sent her a box. Inside was a pamphlet for a financial planning course and a check for $5,000. Attached was a note. "This is in case you come to your senses." It wasn't a gift, it was a bribe. I told Ava to return it. She didn't even hesitate. We were broke, but we weren't for sale. And at that moment I knew I wasn't just building a business. I was building a life that would never again be dependent on people who only offer help when it comes with humiliation. I started turning down every quick fix opportunity that came my way. Friends offered me jobs, comfortable ones. I said no, because SeedCore wasn't a side project, it was the foundation. And Ava, to her credit, never once asked me to take the easy road. She never asked me to prove anything, but I wanted to. Not for her family, for her, for the woman who believed in me when it was easier not to, for the future kids who would grow up knowing their father never bent just to be accepted. Still, I'd be lying if I said their words didn't echo. In the quiet hours when code broke, when servers crashed, when we had $23 in our joint account, I would hear them, "You're not good enough. You can't provide. She deserves more." And sometimes I believed them. For a second, for a minute. But I always came back to the vision, to the man I knew I was becoming. I didn't want revenge. I wanted to rise. Because the best kind of power isn't taken, it's earned. Not through shouting, not through proving people wrong, but by becoming so undeniable that they have no choice but to look you in the eye and recognize you. By our 3rd year of marriage, we were still living lean. No vacations, no upgrades, just grit. But behind closed doors, the blueprint was becoming real. I had rewritten the SeedCore framework 3 times, making it simpler, faster, smarter. I tested it with small businesses in the neighborhood, barbershops, mom-and-pop diners, hardware stores, and I didn't charge them a cent. I just asked them to use it. Give feedback. The results were consistent. They saved time, they saved money, and they asked, "When can we buy this?" That was the turning point. Not a windfall, not a jackpot, just traction, real traction. I took those testimonials, turned them into case studies, and sent out cold emails to bigger fish, regional supply chains, small warehouses, logistic vendors. A few ignored me. One didn't. A mid-sized distribution company asked for a demo. I pitched them over Zoom in a thrift store button-up, sitting on a folding chair in our kitchen. 2 weeks later, they became SeedCore's first paying client. 5 figures, recurring. I didn't tell Ava's family. I didn't need to, but I watched their tone shift subtly. Her father started ending phone calls with, "Tell Elijah I said hello." Her brother, who once told me I was too idealistic, asked Ava what kind of work I was doing these days. I answered with a smile and said, "Still figuring it out. Let them wonder. Let them squirm." I wasn't being petty, I was being focused. Because the empire doesn't build itself, and quiet wins are still wins. With that first client, I hired my first 2 engineers, both friends from my college days, both underpaid geniuses who were just waiting for a reason to believe in something again. We worked 12-hour days, built new modules, streamlined the interface. We weren't playing startup, we were a startup. And when our second client signed on, we crossed 6 figures in revenue, real revenue. No debt, no outside capital, just sweat and results. That's when I began eyeing something I never thought possible, acquisition. Not of SeedCore, but of something bigger. See, Ava's family had run a mid-size logistics software company for decades. Family-owned, comfortable, stagnant, and the whispers in the industry were growing louder. They were losing relevance. I watched from a distance, quietly, carefully. Because now I didn't just want to build something better. I wanted to buy the very thing they once used to measure my worth. I said nothing, but I started asking questions. Who were their investors? What was their debt ratio? Were they looking to modernize? I had leverage now. I had credibility. And I had an idea so sharp it could cut through legacy like glass. This wasn't just about success, it was about reclaiming my narrative, not with vengeance but with vision. It began with a quiet email. Not from me, through a shell holding company I'd set up just months earlier. My name wasn't on it. I didn't need it to be. The email was addressed to Ava's family company's board, proposing a potential partnership acquisition from a growing tech firm that specialized in lean, scalable logistics platforms. It was framed as a solution to their growing stagnation, backed by impressive traction metrics and client retention stats, most of which belonged to Seedcore. Their CFO called back within 48 hours. Ava's father didn't know who was behind the offer at first. He called a family meeting. I wasn't invited. Ava was. She sat at the dining room table, where I'd once been silently humiliated, now hearing her father express concern. "This could be good for us," he said. "We're behind on a few major upgrades, and this platform looks like exactly what we need." He called it visionary. My wife didn't say a word. She just listened. When she came home that night, she kissed me softly on the forehead and said, "They're almost ready." Behind the scenes, I kept the pressure consistent. My team published 2 industry white papers. We appeared in a logistics tech podcast. We were starting to look like the future of supply chain optimization. Their company, they were becoming the past. And the more they tried to copy our features, the more obvious it became that they were falling behind. I watched them attempt a rebrand, a rushed rollout, a desperate pivot. But you can't fake innovation, not when your competition built it from the ground up with his bare hands. 2 weeks later, we went into due diligence. I sat across from Ava's father and brother in a boardroom neutral office, neutral decor. They didn't know I was coming. The moment I walked in, I watched the color drain from both their faces. Ava's father gripped his pen tighter, her brother looked away. I greeted them with calm, deliberate confidence, no smugness, no smirk, just the quiet, composed power of a man who knew exactly what he was doing. "Gentlemen," I said, "let's begin." I walked them through every pain point in their system, point by point, and showed them how Seedcore solved it in real time. Ava's father asked if we were offering a buyout or merger. I said, "We'll acquire 70% ownership. You'll retain advisory roles if you choose, but direction and decisions move through my team." They didn't push back, because they couldn't. They knew the numbers, they saw the future, and it had my fingerprints all over it. That evening, when the papers were signed, I didn't celebrate. I just went home, held Ava close, and stood silently in the kitchen as our daughter colored dinosaurs on the floor. I had waited years for this, not to gloat, not to dominate, but to reclaim my name. The boy they called broke now owned their boardroom. The man they dismissed now signed their checks. Once the ink was dry, the shift was immediate. The staff, most of whom had been quietly frustrated under old management, flocked to Seedcore's systems. Ava's family, still clinging to outdated methods, found themselves surrounded by engineers half their age, moving twice as fast. I didn't fire them. I didn't need to. I simply introduced a better way of doing things. And in the presence of progress, irrelevance reveals itself. Slowly, painfully. Her brother resigned 2 months later. He called it a personal decision. The truth? He couldn't bear reporting to a company run by the man he once mocked for not having a real job. Her father stayed on as a consultant for a while, but his suggestions grew quieter. At meetings, he watched as my team led strategy, signed new clients, and doubled our valuation in less than 6 months. He wasn't angry, he was hollow, and that hurt him more than any insult I could have given. Meanwhile, Ava flourished. She took a leadership role on our education outreach initiative, training young entrepreneurs from underserved communities. Watching her speak to a room full of dreamers guiding them with the same faith she once gave me, made me realize something. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about redemption and legacy. We were rewriting a story that had been too often told in pain, now told in power. One day, her mother reached out. A letter, handwritten. It didn't ask for forgiveness. It didn't mention the past. It simply said, "You were right to believe in him." I showed it to Ava. She smiled, folded it back up, and tucked it into our daughter's baby book, not out of sentiment, but as a quiet reminder that even those who reject you will one day speak your name with respect. We moved into a new home that fall. Nothing flashy, just space, warmth, and peace. The kind of home you build when you've earned everything with calloused hands and sleepless nights. And for the first time, I stopped hearing their voices in my head, the ones that said I wasn't enough, the ones that laughed at my dreams. They were gone, replaced by the quiet hum of purpose and a deeper knowing that I had become the man I once hoped I'd be. I didn't destroy them. I didn't humiliate them. I simply outgrew every lie they told about me. And I did it without ever raising my voice. That's the beauty of quiet revenge. It doesn't need noise. It just needs patience and purpose. There's a strange kind of stillness that follows a long battle won in silence. Not the stillness of nothingness, but of peace. The kind that only comes when you've walked through rejection without bitterness, climbed past ridicule without arrogance, and arrived at the top without stepping on a single soul. That's where I stand now, not as a man obsessed with proving himself, but as one who simply became undeniable. I see Ava's family occasionally. Holidays, dinners. They've softened. Time, as it turns out, is humbling when the person you dismissed is now your lifeline. Her father talks to me differently now. Not like a son-in-law, like a peer. Her mother hugs me longer than necessary, as if hoping I'll forget the years she looked through me. And her brother, he avoids eye contact altogether. There's no need for apologies. I've already moved on. The story has already changed. Our daughter is growing fast. Bright-eyed, curious, brave. One night, she asked me, "Did you always know you'd win?" I didn't lie. I told her no, I didn't always know. But I never stopped moving forward, and that's the truth. There were nights I doubted everything, days I wanted to disappear. But what kept me going wasn't revenge. It was the quiet voice inside that whispered, "You are more than they say you are." Now, I speak to young founders, broke ones, overlooked ones, the ones who walk into rooms full of suits and feel small. I tell them, let them underestimate you, let them laugh, just keep building, keep showing up, keep your head down long enough to rise, so high they can't ignore you, and I see it in their eyes, the same fire I once carried, the fire that says, "You'll remember me." If I had fought back with anger, I would have lost everything, not just the battle, but myself. But by choosing quiet resilience, I rewrote the ending. I built a company, I built a marriage, I built a legacy, and I did it all after being told I had nothing to offer but a dream. That's the irony. They were right, I was broke. But what they never saw was the wealth inside of me, the kind that can't be measured in money, but in how many people rise because you never gave up. So, let them whisper. Let them wonder how you did it. Let them pretend they always supported you. Smile, nod, and sit tall on the throne, their rejection built, for it is yours now, not to rule over them, but to show others that quiet power changes everything. If this story moved you, comment "I built in silence" and share it with someone who's underestimated right now.